some of them shrunken, wizened little things that could not live,
shooting any who fell by the way,
distraught to the point of madness.
Over 60 million people dead.
Now it is civilization's turn to read their monstrous crimes into the record.
4 great nations, flushed with victory and stung with injury, stay the hand of vengeance and voluntarily submit their captive enemies to the judgment of the law is one of the most significant tributes that power has ever paid to reason.
World War II surfaced much more than issues with just violence. Religious and moral values were called into question, leadership was tainted, and an overall sense of trust was set into decline. The end of the war put many of these issues to rest. However, the question then arose, what happens next? The war leaders of the Axis powers had to be held accountable for their wrongdoings. Thus, the Nuremberg trials took place. The Nuremberg trials served as the international response to criminal activities transcending a single nation's borders. It set an important precedent in that it laid foundation for the international prosecution of illegal actions. While much controversy has erupted over potential bias in the proceedings, the Nuremberg trials nonetheless represented the global community's stance on international criminal behavior. World War II resulted in the deaths of over 60 million people, approximately 3% of the world's population at the time. Following the war's conclusion, it fell upon the Allied powers to determine how to handle the Nazi war criminals. Joseph Stalin, the leader of the Soviets, originally argued that 50,000 to 100,000 of the German staff officers should be killed. Similarly, Winston Churchill, the British Prime Minister at the time, suggested the high-ranking Nazis be executed without a trial. However, in the end, the United States' suggestion to have an international criminal trial won out. On August 8th of 1945, the Charter of the International Military Tribunal, or IMT for short, was announced at a conference in London. Under the charter, leading Nazi officials were indicted and placed on trial in Nuremberg, Germany. In a series of 13 trials from then until 1949, the defendants were indicted on various accounts for crimes against humanity, crimes against peace, and war crimes. While many trials took place, the most famous among them was the trial of major war criminals from 1945 to 1946. In this trial, 24 individuals and 6 Nazi organizations were indicted. They were tried by the International Military Tribunal. In the end, only 3 individuals were acquitted, and 12 of those found guilty were to be executed. The so-called subsequent Nuremberg proceedings contained the remaining 12 trials. While the trial of major war criminals was conducted by the International Tribunal, these were instead run by the U.S. military tribunals because the Allied forces couldn't continue to cooperate in joint trials. Key among the 12 proceedings were the doctor's trial and the judge's trial. In contrast to the trial of major war criminals, where the majority of those found guilty received death sentences, a mere 12 of the 185 were called to be executed. Instead, 85 of those found guilty received various prison sentence lengths. The proceedings encouraged a major technological breakthrough, IBM's instantaneous language translations. Because the participants were from nations across the globe, it was essential for the translators to clarify what was being said very quickly. As a result, they made headphones to translate English, French, Russian, and German languages to the trial participants. On a larger scale, the trials dramatically altered, or really jump-started, the international criminal justice system. The proceedings sponsored the 1948 United Nations Genocide Convention and the 1948 Universal Declaration of Human Rights. It also served as an important precedent in tribunals from The Hague in the Netherlands, as well as the International Tribunal for the Far East. Moreover, the proceedings served as an essential stepping stone for later trials, such as that of the Nazi leader Adolf Eichmann in 1961.
And it set this precedent that you can actually try individuals for war crimes. So Saddam Hussein, right, there were indications that he would be tried, and there are other examples of war criminals from other wars that are now the United Nations is really leading that effort to try and bring more criminals from these countries. So that international justice and bringing people who kill, who order the death of civilians to trial is a long-term impact.
Now, we see further evidence of the trial's effects through the International Law Commission and the International Criminal Court. Much controversy has erupted over potential bias in the proceedings. For one, there was no precedent for the charges of crimes against humanity and crimes against peace, both ex post facto law.
So ex post facto law means that you take a law that's passed and you apply it retroactively. And most countries, including the United States, forbid this. But in fact, waging an aggressive war had never been a crime. Neither in individual countries nor international law had not prohibited waging an aggressive war. So it's suddenly declared to be a crime in 1945, and the Germans are prosecuted for waging an aggressive war in 1939. So it's being applied retroactively, and not only that, but they're charging the Germans with waging an aggressive war. How many other countries had previously waged aggressive wars? The United States, the British, the French. So the Germans are being singled out, and this law is being applied.
Another key controversial element is the fact that the judges were anything but impartial. In fact, the Soviets accused the Nazis of ordering the deaths of 15,000 Polish officers, when in reality, they were the ones who ordered the Katyn massacre. This all goes to show that there was bias surrounding the trial's rulings. Additionally, some even believe that the Holocaust never occurred. Believers claim that the videos and photographs are all part of some elaborate hoax. However, even if this was somehow true, this does not take away from the Nuremberg trial's overwhelming effect on international criminal law. The Nuremberg trials and the Nuremberg principles stood for a universal sense of justice. They essentially held that no person is above the law. Criminal activity needs to be punished, and victims of said crimes deserve some form of solace. The Nuremberg trials mark a clear point in history, where nations banded together for a common goal, the establishment of an international criminal justice system. Although much controversy surrounds the rulings in the proceedings, the trials nonetheless serve as a distinct indication that the global community was willing to put their differences aside and join together in taking a stand against criminal behavior.
By the President of the United States, Harry S. Truman.
We do not wish to see unnecessary or unjustified suffering, but the laws of God and of man have been violated, and the guilty must not go unpunished.
Murder or ill treatment of prisoners of war or persons on the seas, killing of hostages, plunder of public or private property, wanton destruction of cities, towns or villages, or devastation not justified by military necessity. C. Crimes against humanity, namely murder, extermination, enslavement, deportation, and other inhumane acts committed against any civilian population before or during the war.
For many weary months, a mountain of incredible proof is piled up against these men. Millions of words of evidence have been heard by the judges. Thousands upon thousands of documents have been examined by the finest legal minds of the four nations.